पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह पाजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद पूल मात जाह मानस जन्म का एही लाह.
Well, welcome friends to another podcast in the Holy Truth series, given as always in the name of the Supreme Lord, who once again wishes to impart the very highest truth of what many call God, life and creation to the sincere seekers of the world, especially for the modern age. That's further supported by the holy masters, perfect saints and noble mystics of today. Now this high truth of the ages is the noble path of Sant, or path of the true saints, also known as the universal truth, true spirituality, or true religion, that is so graciously gifted to seeking humanity by the great holy masters, perfect saints, and noble mystics in every age, who are themselves the true representatives of the Supreme Lord even today. And although little known among the masses, once encountered, a sincere truth seeker can easily recognize that this noble path, or true way, encompasses all true faiths and beliefs, as the noble source of all, details of which can be found in our humble literature, spiritual centers, or YouTube channel, as well as in the Holy Discourse series of ISTAuk.com. But before I begin today's session of spiritual questions and answers, I would first like to make a short introduction about who we are and what we represent here today. We are the International Spiritual Truth Association, or ISTA for short. And although now global, we originally set up in 2016 in the UK by request of the Holy Masters of the day, who derived their authority from Great Master Baba Saran Singh Ji of the holy lineage of Sant in India, the Levant and Persia. Now our given mission is simple: to tell the full truth about true spirituality or true religion from the Supreme Lord's point of view, especially for the modern age, while also correcting the confusions of the past and even that of the present about what is the real truth. Yet this high teaching is not new. It is the age-old path of true spirituality, known today as the Holy Truth of Sant, which in fact has been discreetly taught throughout the ages to the most sincere seekers of the time, alongside the more familiar religions or philosophical teachings that we are all familiar with. Indeed, Holy Masters tell us that the simple teachings of mass religion and mass philosophy are only there to elevate the masses to the position of higher truth seeking, so that they can understand and ultimately practice true spirituality or true religion. Therefore, our mission here today is simple: to impart the very highest truth of the Supreme Lord to those who wish to know, with all the love, grace, and wonder that such a gift entails. Now, for those who do listen and take heed, Holy Masters tell us that they are indeed the most fortunate ones of humanity. As for myself, I am a sincere devotee of the very highest truth of Sant, who has given his life in the service of the true Lord. As such, I do not seek any recognition, praise, or reward, as I only act with the authority and by request of the Supreme Lord itself and the Holy Masters of today, to simply tell the full truth of God, life, and creation for the modern age. I humbly speak, therefore, as one who has been gifted with the true knowledge of that high truth, and as one who lives in the Supreme Lord's will. Thus, I offer my humble demonstration and knowledge to all who seek the same. Now, as a friend on this noble path to God realization, I only ask that you put aside my human form and instead listen to and take heed of the loving message that the Supreme Lord has to offer you via this humble form, who has himself been transformed by the Holy Masters of today. Thus, I represent the proof that truly anyone can rise above their given karmic role to become truly noble once again by the true Lord's grace, if only they earnestly seek it. Therefore, everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom direct from the true Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high spiritual truth. In this way, I am a humble servant and perfect friend, whom the true Lord has gifted with direct knowledge of the holy truth, which I have been asked to share with you. So although I shall speak with the authority of one who has been instructed to do so by the Supreme Lord, please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble servant in any way, for you too are all divine beings, undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely by the highest authority, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy truth that the Supreme Lord has to offer you. Now, for those who need further assistance, they may privately contact the main speaker directly via email or video by first subscribing to our valuable information service at ISTAuk.com and then requesting the direct contact details of our main speaker from our administrators. He will endeavour to answer all spiritual queries within 48 hours of receipt, but please be patient if he should take a little longer due to his busy schedule and sheer number of inquiries. So thank you, and let's now begin with the question and answer session from spiritual truth seekers as well as the audience. But before I begin the question and answer session today, I would like to first respond to several emails I have recently received regarding the puzzling existence of the karmic or negative realms in an otherwise glorious creation. So here is a brief explanation for those who want to know how the karmic realms came about. The full story of the existence and role of the lower or karmic realms is indeed an epic one that centers upon the adversaries of Kal and Maya, meaning time and illusion, battling against the hero or of high truth eternity, the source of all creation, for the very souls of creation, known as the divine play. As Kabir Sahib put it, who is a 14th century perfect saint of India, it is Kal's perversion of that part of eternity which it touches that produces the karmic worlds, the only reality most of us know, the mock worlds of illusion, mind and matter that we are all trapped in. Now the epic begins with the infamous creator of the three karmic realms known as Kal, meaning illusory time or negative power, becoming deluded. Despite being one of the original 16 manifested attributes of the true Lord, known as Satgurus or Supreme Consciousness, that had to manifest for creation as a whole to exist. You see, Kal, or the ego attribute of the true Lord, was unable to handle the separation from its origin, the true Lord or eternity, that the creation process demanded, and so became deluded, which is the nearest human expression one could use to describe the state of Kal at that time. Thus, ignoring the wishes of the true Lord, Kal, who is presented as a fallen demonic male figure by most religions, misused the tools of creation entrusted to him, through which, due to his impatience and megalomania, created, metaphorically, a sewer where a garden was intended, isolated and controlled within eternity itself, and proclaiming himself as God to the souls trapped in his illusory domain. You see, armed with the tools of creation that were entrusted to him, Kal became convinced that he is the greatest Lord among the 16 attributes, and thus demands to be worshipped as God by the souls of creation, through setting up a law so stringent that no one, meaning the souls in creation, can keep it, a law over which he presides to this day, governing a closed-circuit universe of sin and judgment known as the karmic realms, that would be utterly without hope if it were not for the fact that, as the poet Blake puts it, eternity, or high truth consciousness, is ever in love with the products of its creation, and thus seeks to help them, although eternity must follow the law it created, which allows Kal the power to misuse the tools of creation. We call this drama the play of the divine, in which we find ourselves trapped today. Indeed, because of the nature of high truth's love, and because the souls are the essence of high truth consciousness, it cannot help but love those caught in the trap of Kal. It has therefore set up a series of incursions in which the high truth enters the metaphorically dark karmic realms of Kal's illusion and somewhat illumines it, awakening souls who are ready to grasp the highest truth and showing them the way out, against the backdrop of karmic religions, debating philosophies, and arrogant sciences, designed by Kal to trap the slumbering souls in an endless cycle of karmic wanderings that lead nowhere. These incursions, initially in the form of the high truth son of the true Lord, Satgurus, called Dayal Purush, the merciful one, known to us as the Param Sant Satguru, who is the original hero of this epic drama, going back to antiquity, that continues to this day in the form of assigned successors, who are the master saviors of this epic, is the focus of our teachings today. Now, at the core of our true salvation is the infinitely patient search by the living holy masters for the sincerely seeking souls of creation who, although initially ignorant, have the potential to become saved through true enlightenment, and who, as a result, also represent the living examples of our own potential here on earth. Therefore, it is through the form of a true holy master that the full nature of our predicament and knowledge of our true home and origin in Satgurus, the ocean of love, is most fully revealed and demonstrated through the guiding principle of divine love termed grace. Indeed, no matter how imperceptive one reveals themselves to be, no matter how thoroughly one has forgotten their true nature, and how sound is one slumbering, the true master never lets up, relentlessly pursuing the marked ones, the marked souls of creation, through incarnation after incarnation, if necessary, thus relieving us of our burden here in this world by awakening us in something called holy initiation. So the role of the master is pivotal in this drama, but indeed the master itself is actually nothing more than our higher self calling to us. So when others say, why should we follow a man who looks like us, eats like us, talks like us, lives like us, why should we follow such a one? It is because he is the embodiment of truth and awareness that leads us back to our true home. Unless somebody can instruct us on how to live this life most peacefully and simply, without attachments and desires, and unless such a one can pull us with something called grace and divine love, we would never leave this illusion, because we're so thoroughly amused by it, so thoroughly allured by it, even its negative aspects, that we cannot see any way out for ourselves. But somebody comes into this illusion who tells us that we don't belong here, this is not our true home. We actually reside in a far greater land, a land of wonder, love, bliss and joy, of eternity, where there is no suffering, no birth and death, no having to perform anything, no judgment. And we think to ourselves, how is this even possible? Because we experience in this life only the negative, only the judgments, and even the loves of this world are fleeting, because they are called pleasures. They don't come from inner joy of knowledge and wisdom. So all the positives that we experience in this world are fleeting, and all the negatives are persistent, relentlessly pursuing us life after life. So the masters themselves come to save us, and the masters themselves are nothing more than our higher self, calling to us, which is how love can exist. Because actually it's love of the self, love of the truth, that is pulling us. And this love is different from separation love or emotional love that we have in this world, because it is our own truth that is calling to us in a language that our soul can understand, not the mind. The mind may question the role of a master. Why is he here? Why do we need a master? Why not just follow an instruction book? But this love and this pull between the master soul and the individuated soul is something so special. No book can convey this. No teaching can convey this. No mechanical means or physical means can imitate this. It is something that is so deep within our core and with such a magnetism to it that it pulls us out despite our protestations, because the mind does not want to leave this realm. So the mind itself likes to view creation from an intellectual point of view. It likes to analyze parts. And this is the problem with the mind, because in analyzing parts, what's actually happening is that we're losing our ability to discern the whole, the picture as a whole. Just like the viewing of a great painting of a magnificent tree can become distorted by the analytical mind, never looking at the picture as a whole, but instead habitually examining the brush strokes used by the painter, measuring the sizes of the individual components of the tree, or analyzing the color palette chosen for the painting via the electromagnetic spectrum of science, gives such a habitual viewer, operating at the level of the mind alone, a distorted sense of reality and of pleasure, none of which lets us see the true beauty and wonder of the tree as a whole, which is an even greater wonder called joy, that the mere pleasure seekers cannot understand. It's akin to our predicament today while living in the body. That is how the mind distorts reality to present a puzzling mystery of mere parts that doesn't actually exist as a whole. If we want to enjoy the full and magnificent beauty of the tree as a whole, then by ignoring that and instead counting how many leaves there are, measuring the sizes of the branches present, analyzing why certain brushstrokes are used, and so on, do not and cannot convey the true magnificence of the mighty tree, which can only be experienced as a whole. Quite remarkably, from the higher perspective, Despite human beings having all three faculties within them, the emotional instincts of human evolution, of animal evolution, the refined intellect of the human philosophers or scientists, and the spiritual intuition of enlightened human beings, they simply champion human intellect over everything else, especially over emotional instinct or animal response, to separate themselves from the lower species, yet ignore spiritual intuition, which is greater still, simply because they are not made aware of this higher faculty by the intellectuals of the current education institutes. It's an interesting phenomenon to witness today by those who are greater enlightened, through engaging the higher state of their mind faculty. Still higher, however, is the conscious awareness of the soul, possessed by the truly or fully enlightened, that reaches far beyond anything the mind can comprehend, embodying true love and bliss. Indeed, the problems of life as a whole cannot be resolved by the thinking process alone. On the contrary, the thinking process is limited to a boundary which, like any concentric boundary, goes round in circles. It's like being trapped in a sphere with no end to the horizon, where the intellectual mind forever updates itself in its partial knowledge of space and time, yet never gets the full picture. In this way, the intellectual mind only finds more problems, more questions, more theories, as it moves about in debate. It has no end to it. It is a clever design of illusory creation that tests one's human resolve to actually seek the full, not partial truth. Those who make it across the intellectual boundary through engaging their higher or spiritual faculty, however, are hailed as heroes, or the enlightened ones. Yet they are simply human beings, like us, who have managed to engage their higher faculty, and thus have awakened a greater awareness that we all have within us. Now that concludes this short story of lower creation and the predicament of its inhabiting souls to this day, though given in brief. Nevertheless, I hope to have answered the emails adequately, but if not, they are most welcome to ask for further clarity. Similarly, if anyone here in the audience wishes to ask a question about all this, please do so now, otherwise we'll continue with the question and answer session. You all happy to carry on? Okay, let's carry on with the question and answer session for today.
Thank you. I've got a few questions around Simran. First question, what is Simran, also known as holy repetition, and what are the benefits of doing Simran in the physical world?
You see, in the modern times, our mind is so engaged in outward activities. It's so engaged in analysing, as I just mentioned in the short talk, and it's so engaged in kind of chatting, that the saints of the past, particularly Kabir Sahib, came up with a system to occupy the mind in such a way that it would stop this outward chattering, this outward analysis, and focus on some words which fundamentally to humans have no meaning whatsoever. So these words we call today Simran. But there's a little more to that, because whilst we are repeating this mantra of Simran, which allows the mind to be occupied in something other than the thinking process of life and the worries and concerns of matters of today, it also carries a power, but not the words. The words don't carry the power. It's the one who gives them that charges them. So when a perfect holy master gives the Simran of the Lord, that Simran carries a power to elevate us and to allow us to cross safely across the inner realms of experience. But if another person who is not given the authority to use those names for salvation uses those names, they carry no benefit at all. So Simran is very special if given by a holy master, but otherwise it is just another mantra or verse of recitation if somebody picks it up by other means and just starts adopting it. So this is very important, that this Simran differs according to whom has been given it and who by. So the benefits of doing Simran in the physical world are simply to occupy the mind, to stop thinking about worldly matters, which means that if the mind stays still long enough, it is easier to withdraw the attention within. Simran has many other uses as well, in the sense that when you're in some sort of difficulty and trouble, Simran is associated with your master, for those who are initiated. And therefore, when they're doing the Simran of the master, they're effectively calling upon the master for help continuously, for protection. And this actually happens. If they can remember to do the Simran at such times, the master definitely helps. And there are many stories of people who said, luckily I remember to recite the Simran, these holy mantra, and I got saved, and I don't know how they got saved. And many, many stories. So yes, Simran, when given by a perfect master, is a great power.
Thank you. Master Sant Ajab Singh Ji stated that Simran is the naam of the saints. Simran acts like a weapon. Like a bullet, it finishes anything that comes in its way. Kindly further explain what is the power of Simran. If there's anything else that you want to add.
You see, what he's referring to as Simran being the naam of the saints, because when naam is given, naam means name, it's in two forms. One is recognition of the highest truth. You are made in connection with a shabad within, which is the holy sound that comes from the Lord or yourself. But a second part is these 5 holy names called Simran. So that is what Sant Ajab Singh Ji is referring to in his discourse. And when he says Simran acts like a weapon, this is just you could say an earthly expression of the power of Simran. Because if somebody says Simran with absolute faith and trust that this is the holy mantra given by their master and it carries the grace of the master with it, then yes, it can level mountains and dry the seas. It can do anything. So he's speaking in this term, metaphorically. And he says it finishes anything that comes in the way. Well, this is why. But the faith has to be there. The faith and trust has to be there in the master who's given it to you, that he has the power to do these things. If you don't believe that the Lord can help you, can save you, and you ask for his help, what can he do? He says, you're asking for me to help, but you don't believe I can do this. I can't go against your belief. I can't go against your wishes, because I created you. He says, okay, you can carry on asking, but when you are ready to believe, I will help. So that's why prayers, all these things, sometimes are answered in some people and are not in others. Yet they both do the same activity on the surface. And you might think, well, they're both praying. Why is somebody's prayer answered and the other one apparently not? Because you have to look at the condition of the one who's asking.
Thank you. I think you've answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. Does Simran affect the situations and the environment around you?
Yes, again, specifically if it's used with faith and trust in the one who's given it, it can change everything.
Right, I've got a question around inner sound. I'm going to read out a statement and there's 2 questions that relate to it. I have heard that when one is focusing at the third eye centre, which is the 6th chakra, through meditation, music of a certain frequency or a Tibetan meditation bowl sounds. Then after some time in meditation, you start hearing different sounds inside and it feels like that sound is pulling you towards it. Then they have different inner experiences. So the question is it possible for one to hear the sound inside while listening to meditative music? And is this process safe?
You see, the path of the saints of true realization does not involve anything external. If you're trying to meditate and withdraw the consciousness within yourself, to leave the body, leave the senses behind, how can you at the same time be listening to external music? It's simply not possible. So this is the realm of the yogis. So the yogis came up with a system where we could get a good mindfulness experience. And a good mindfulness experience makes you happy and you think, oh yes, I've attained something. I'm having a great feeling. I'm even seeing things created by the mind, imagination, because the mind is imaginative. So you have all these inner experiences and you have this feeling. And the yogis only knew about this. So they then thought, well, how can we increase these type of mindfulness experiences? I know, let's have some nice music. Let's have nice incense. Let's have ambient lighting. And all kinds of other things that affect the mood, you see. And people confuse this change of mood with a spiritual experience. A real spiritual experience stuns you. It stops you in your track. Believe me, if somebody says to me, I don't know if I've had a spiritual experience. I said, if you don't know, you haven't had it.
Yeah,
I said, believe me. It's like, how does a lady know when she's had a baby? If she has to ask, when have I had the baby? She hasn't had it. Believe me, when the baby's coming, she'll scream the whole house down. The whole street will know that she's having that baby. There's no question of it. When you are in that spiritual mode, when you have real inner experience, there's no mistaking it. So generally the rule is, if you have to ask whether you're having a real spiritual experience or an imaginative experience, then you haven't had a spiritual experience. Yes?
When initiates have these spiritual experiences,
yes,
compared to non-initiates, are they going down and taking a different route?
It's slightly so, yes. Because when the master takes the account into hand, he then now administers your pralabdha karma, your current destiny, in a certain way that allows you to use these illusions in your favor. So although it's still imagination, it's still illusion, it's not real because it doesn't pull you. It nevertheless can guide you to a state where higher mind is awakened. Because remember, the first thing we have to do is get this higher mind going. The higher faculty that we have of mind, the wisdom mind, is something that's not awakened in most human beings. They do not even know they have it. They have some glimpses of it. And they think, well, I'm having this gut feeling, this intuition and so on. They don't actually know how to work this higher aspect of themselves. So the yogis came in the past and they taught this method of meditation and chanting and everything to try and awaken this higher mind faculty. So it's the higher mind faculty that needs to be awakened first before you can cross the regions of mind and maya. So that means that the masters will introduce you to maybe some dreams or little visions or something, glimpses of the truth, reflections of the truth, not the actual truth, just a reflection of it, to give you that motivation, to give you that impetus, to give you that desire to seek further. Yeah.
So, if I imagine the astral plane,
yeah,
like this realm, and if it's mapped out and you have certain areas which you can visit and you can't visit,
yes, yes.
When your initiate goes down through the astral plane, is the master taking them down a different path?
Oh, completely so.
Like as if it was a map.
Firstly, the master doesn't want you to go sightseeing. You want to go sightseeing. Master says these worlds, part of the three worlds, are illusion. They're just a higher form of illusion, a more wonderful form of illusion, but they're still illusion. But some people who are very much, their nature is such that they want to experience everything bit by bit. They don't want to go home. They want to just go through every step of the journey. Like some people want to get on an aeroplane and go to, say, India. Other person wants to walk it across from England to India. Imagine. Both are still heading there, but that one wants to experience every footstep along the way. Either way, they still get there in time. So with their masters, they encourage you, hey, don't look around. You're only going to see higher wonders here, and you're going to be lured by them. And if you're lured by them, I have to sit and wait. I can't go against your wish. So I ask you not to go. But you may still say, I've heard about these heavens and these hells. I'd like to go and have a look. Master's, okay, have a look. So yes, you can go experiencing them, but the master is always in control. Let's say there is an invisible rope, like a dog lead, around your neck. And if you stray too far, the master gives a tug and says, no, enough, come back. That's the difference. Whereas if you go through a yogic experience, through an energetic experience, then what happens is when you enter that world, there's no one to meet you. There's no guide. So if you have no guide and you suddenly land in the airport in India, where do you go? You don't know where you go. Somebody says, come to India and you'll find a master. Okay, now I'm at the airport, where do I look for one? You can walk this way, that way. You meet all sorts of people selling you all kinds of things. Tell me, where are you going to find this master without a guide? So the master is absolutely essential within to guide you. Without which, yes, you could go exploring. And the yogis have written greatly about their explorations of these wonderful lands and colours and things. But what have they attained from that visit? They're just as lost there as they were here. And both are illusion.
What I'm trying to get at is when we are told to listen to the sound on your right and others follow the sound on the left, is that because we are taking a different route through the astral?
You see, there's a misunderstanding about this listening to the sound to the right and the left. Again, from the time of Kabir, when this practice was refined into a discipline that could be practiced by his followers, they were very limited in their intellectual capacity and their ability to understand many concepts that we take for granted today. So Kabir chose to tell the entirety of all of this in the form of a story. So he had to explain to them something that they could actually understand in their day. Now, yes, it's true that there's a downward current coming into the creation and there's an upward current flowing up. And Kabir says that the downward current is coming on the left and the upward current is going on the right. So even to this day, until recently, masters have generally followed this idea. Okay, listen to the sound to the right, ignore the sound to the left. But actually neither are true. Because the real sound that takes you beyond the mind, we're talking about a sound now that's not of the mind realm, that is up and down. Because this sound going down, this sound going up, is only to do with the mind. It doesn't exist in the higher planes. The real sound is in the center. So really, you should focus into the center and ignore anything from the left or the right. Despite what you read about in the books, despite what you may have been told in the past. And any holy master, true master, will tell you the same. So this sound in the center is the one that pulls you home. In fact, even if you listen to the sound on the right, the mind sound, eventually you'll be drawn to the center. And the real sound will pull you. Whereas the right sounds are interesting to listen to, but they don't have any pull. It's the center one that pulls you. It connects direct to the soul. The Shabad is coming from your own soul, calling to you. This is what we call self-realization. And where does that happen? Beyond the realm of mind and Maya. You have to cross the limitations of mind and Maya to enter Parbrahm, where the soul itself is free in its pristine glory. It is from there that the Shabad emanates. And that Shabad pulls you. And the masters have variously described this sound as the big bell sound. Because the nearest thing that we have on earth is the peal of a bell when this sound resides within. Now this sound, they call it unhad Shabad, meaning unstruck. This type of bell is unique because it hasn't got a beginning and doesn't have an end. It's just the peal of the bell. So when masters were asked, what is this sound? They said it's the big bell sound because it sounds very deep and pulling. But that only takes you to the level of Parbrahm. After that, there is no such thing.
So those who are not initiated, they also say they hear a sound.
Yes, you can hear many sounds in the astral realm. These are called practice sound, but they don't pull you. Anyone can listen to the left or right sounds. Anyone operating in the realm of mind with yogic practice, like Kriya Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Raja Yoga, which is most famously for this. These yogas allow you to listen to these sounds, but they have no pulling. They do not give you any awareness. They're just an entertainment. It's like if I listen to sound here and I get, amused by it. Then when I switch the sound off, I'm back to square one. What have I attained?
So they cannot hear the sound that initiate can hear?
No. The sound beyond the mind and Maya, no one can listen who's not initiate. This is a privilege given to initiates only, because their journey is different. They're not going exploring in the karmic realms round and round in circles. They're going out. They're escaping the karmic realms of Kal. Therefore, they have to have a different method. That's why, otherwise, why initiate? Why just say, no, don't want to about initiation. We're not going to put ourselves in there as the guide. The Master's not going to place his spiritual form within you, the Holy Ghost, to save you. And he's not going to attach you to the sound of your own soul that pulls you beyond the mind. It's just go wandering around in the inner realms. Something has to be there that separates the mind realms from the spiritual realms. So this is the unique Shabbat, the pull of the soul, and also the Holy Master as the guide within. This is what separates Sant Mat from religion or philosophy or science. Any other practice, because in all these practices, they're within the realm of mind, where you're kind of negotiating your way around the big playground of illusion.
So the deities of the Hindu faith, they can't hear the shop.
They don't.
Are they aware of it?
They are aware that there's something beyond them that they think is their own Lord. Remember from the story of creation, when Carl created the three worlds of illusion, he put himself as the God. But uniquely so, how would these deities continue to churn the ocean of this creation of past, present and future and allow the souls entering it to suffer? They see the suffering of the souls as well as the beauty, but they still continue to churn the ocean of karmic existence. Why? Because they have the ultimate level of devotion to their Father. And how? Why are they so devoted to their Father in such a way? Why don't they just stay there and just look at him upward and not downward? Why bother with creation? Because this is a unique trick of the ego attribute, because they're all created of the ego attributes, including our mind. He hid himself from them. He's doing what religions do today, which is the religions of Carl, which say, be a good boy, and at the end of life you'll go to heaven. No proof needed that this is going to be the case. No one is going to come back to tell us that they made it or didn't. Yeah, that's the religion. So when this is based on the understanding that Carl gave to his three sons. We call them sons, they're three powers, past, present and future, or Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. And he promised them this. He said, I exist, I'm your creator, but you cannot see me until the end of time. But I will in the meantime give you a glimpse of my feet. This is where the concept of touching the feet in Hinduism and most of the Indian religions and so on, the Vedas and so on, come about, because he presents his feet to them as proof. And he said, if you churn the oceans and follow my instructions of running this show, without question, no matter what you see, I will give you darshan of my face. That is his promise to them. So now these three sons, or these three powers, are churning the ocean of creation in the hope that by the end of time, they will have darshan of their father. Imagine that. Your father writes to you letters. You've never met him because he left when you were born. And he promises you that on the time of the 18th birthday, that he will come and see you. But in the meantime, he wants you to do such and such. And you have such devotion to your father. You say, I just want to see my father. I'll do anything he says, even become a criminal, because I want to see my father. That is the level of devotion that these sons have. In fact, their level of devotion, despite the portrayal of them in this negative state of illusion, is unmatched anywhere. If we could even have a measure of their level of devotion to their father, to our master, we would all go home instantly. So despite the fact that we see them as the enemy, the negative power, keeping us trapped in creation by keeping us in the time system of past, present and future and forever going round in circles, you have to admire, from a saint's point of view, their level of devotion to their father. They do not question their father even for an instant. They do not say, Father, why, as I'm churning the ocean of creation, churning the Vedas and making this happen, the souls are suffering. They do not question it. Because they say, our Father is wise, he created us. Therefore, we just do his bidding. It's an amazing thing to see, actually, that level of devotion. However, obviously, at the end of time, even they will merge with their Father, and the Father will merge back to Satgurus. The whole thing is an illusion. So they are sucked into the illusion of suffering and pleasure, just as you are. You believe this world is made of suffering and pleasure, so you run along chasing them and avoiding the other. But actually, there's no reality to anything. If you were to withdraw your consciousness and go within, you'll see the reality of the show. It's only a play. You've gone to the theatre to witness a play. You don't jump onto the stage to kill the villain with your knife. You know it is only a play.
When the masters are travelling within their realms, what do they think the masters are?
They do not understand the masters. They do not know what they are. They know that these incursions or the invasions into the illusion realms are beings of something, but they do not understand. For example, in the astral realm, so when a master appears in the astral realm, he manifests and looks like an astral being. The astral beings there do not know or have access to the causal realm. This idea of boundaries is a very remarkable design, because it means that if somebody comes from a higher plane of existence and presents themselves there, they will only think they come from a higher plane of existence, not what they really are. It's a clever disguise. We see this proof here. When a master is born here in the physical, they take the physical form. We say they're just a man or a woman. We don't actually know who they are, that they all go, their awareness extends all the way. Just as we're deluded here, so are the astral beings deluded, so are the causal beings deluded.
So then why is it when in one of Ishwapuri's talks did he say that when he visited the astral plane and met the king of the astral plane, that he bowed down to the great master? If they don't know who the masters are?
No, they know that, for example, if a master goes to the astral plane, and obviously he has some grace and association with him, they don't know who he really is. They think that he comes from the next level up, like the causal realm. They think, oh, he's a deity. They don't know what it is they're bowing to. They just recognize something greater than them. Like, for example, if you meet the king, you bow to the king. He's a human being like you. He's born from the same position. But you bow to him because you say he's a king. But he's still in this world. He's still subject to the same things you are. This is all part of the illusion, or should I say delusion. The delusion of the humans, the mind, is such that it sees things in an unreal state, in a distorted state. But when it gets to know the reality, all this is made clear. And you say, what a wonderful play. You know, people say, oh, well, would you change anything? Why? It is so perfectly imperfect. The imperfection and delusion is so perfect, you have to admire it. But why was it created in the first place? Because when you're in your true home, you wanted to appreciate more what it is that you are witnessing there, the joy and the bliss, because you're stuck in eternity. The only way you can appreciate it is by creating something opposite, the negative. And when you throw yourself into the negative and then come back to the positive, you say, wow, I appreciate the positive even more. I've been through an incredible experience. It gives you that appreciation even more, which is why creation took place in the first place, so that the Lord can appreciate his own glory, because he has the power to do anything, and he can experience every aspect of his own glory from infinite angles and infinite points of view. So the whole creation came into being. And who are you in all of this? You are the very Lord itself, individuated as a being, but you come from the totality of consciousness. And when you reach the totality of consciousness and become one with the Lord, you say, I am the Lord itself. I manifested the Master. I manifested all the other beings in my show to have a play with them. But when everything is packed up and brought back home, you're all one. You simply separated yourself. And that's the true marvel of this creation which the Masters reveal. Beyond the level of the mind. The mind is long left behind. The mind only understands time and space and duality. It cannot understand a realm where there's no space and time. So what happens in Satgurus, this glorious ultimate heaven? Nothing happens. It is perfect stillness. There is not even a hint of agitation. And therefore, there is no distress. But when you come into the karmic realms of having to do something, seek something, find something, now you have agitation. And with agitation comes suffering. Because it's not peaceful. Now the degree of agitation determines how much suffering you have. So the idea is we want to get away from this agitated world and go into this perfect stillness of peace, which the yogis represent. I mean, what is all this meditation? It's all about sitting still and being still and being still with your mind. They talk about stilling the mind, stilling yourself. What is all this stillness about? Because the motionless plane of such kind is stillness, perfect stillness, no agitation. And only in that do you find ultimate peace. This is beyond the mind's capability to understand, which is why the saints don't talk about it too much. Because the mind says, how can I be happy? That's boring. If I'm not having anything to challenge me, how can perfect stillness be something enjoyable? Because this is not a state of mind. You see, in the state beyond mind and beyond time, there is only now. There's no past and there's no future. There's only the present, and not even the present, there's only now. And now exists every moment. It does not have time. If you think now you're listening to this, where is the time? You call it the present because you have to give it a label. But actually, now is your only reality. And the next moment is now, and that's your reality. But there's no time. Moments and moments are simply in that higher state of awareness. By simply placing your attention somewhere, you're creating a now. If you withdraw your attention, there's no now. All that exists is now, there. Therefore, we have no time. And if there's only now, there's no space. You cannot have space without time, and you cannot have time without space. So that state of existence there is a remarkable state in which all things are available to you at once. There's no question of having to journey anywhere, look for anything, investigate something, seek something. No, you just enjoy. We do not understand that level of joy. So it gave a term called bliss, because joy was simply not enough. Because we use the word joy here to give you some idea of what a really high pleasure would be. But the master says, no, it's different. So I know what, we're going to give this word bliss. So heaven is bliss. What does that mean? It's blissful joy. It's just a term of expression to express the ultimate happiness that you have there, the ultimate completeness you have there, because you're whole once again. You are fully aware of your glory, and you can witness your glory from every possible angle. So when you come into the creation, you come there to appreciate that even more. Because when you're in a state of eternity, of oneness with yourself, you want to you want to increase the expression of this joy that you have. And the only way to do it is to create an illusion separate from yourself, take part in this play, which is called suffering, and then return back to your home and say, wow, how wonderful is this home? I really appreciate it now. So duality is created. For example, would we ever appreciate life if death didn't exist? We wouldn't care for life. We wouldn't want to preserve it. We wouldn't appreciate the light if there was no darkness. The only reason we recognize that light even exists and appreciate it is because darkness exists. We only admire beauty because ugliness exists. Without the opposite, you cannot appreciate the wonder of what you have. It's just there. Same condition with the Lord. In order to appreciate the glory and power and majesty of the Lord, he created a separate alternative creation, which is imperfect, so that now you can appreciate the imperfect, all-powerful Lord. He does this for himself. He worships himself through us. We don't worship anything. It is him worshipping himself through us. But because he has given us an individuated unit of consciousness, separate from the totality of consciousness, which we call Jeeves or souls, we now worship our own totality. And we give this name to totality. We call it God. What is the God? The God is everything in creation. Nothing exists but the Lord. You know, when somebody said to me, I want to see God, I said, oh, don't you see him already? He's everywhere. You cannot, as a human being, see God. Because when you go to see God, you become God. That is the only way to see God. Become it. There's no way of seeing. But you can see expressions of the Lord in all its forms. So now these expressions, let's say one of them is a master. Now we devote ourselves to that one, because this particular expression can take us back to our true home. Not that there's anything greater in the master than you even. But in the beginning, you pray to this one, you worship that one, you say, what a wonderful thing. But the master himself thinks, okay, anything that brings you along on this journey, I'm happy for you to follow. But then he reveals the full truth. You know, all this time, you and I are going to merge now to cross into Parbrahm. So that's where you merge with the master. And then you realize you and the master are one all this time. When you reach that mukti, that state in Par Brahm, where you're a liberated soul. Imagine the wonder of your discovery to find that you were everything. Actually, everything came from you. Now you have to go back to your totality. So the journey from Par Brahm to Satgurus is very different to the journey from here to the top of the mind realms. They are opposites. So therefore, the means by which you travel there, the experiences you have as such are completely opposite. They're completely different. The mind realms all based on agitation, searching for something, learning something, doing something. The spiritual realms are all based on increasing stillness, reducing the agitation to a point where you have perfect stillness. And when you're perfect stillness, you're one. When you become one with the entirety of consciousness, then that is perfect stillness, and that means that you can be aware of everything at the same time without having to do any effort. There's no such thing as effort or doing. It is an automatic awareness that is awakened to you. And the awareness of your full glory, which is infinite, which the human mind cannot understand infinity. No one has been able to describe infinity or eternity. We cannot imagine that. But there it exists. And the only way to truly understand is to go there, whether you have it as a glimpse or be there. Then you understand this concept of eternity and infinity. That is just words used in a book that people recite. They don't know what it is they're even reading. But that's the clear difference between the mind realms and the soul realms. Completely different. Everything's very different. So, yes, okay. Yes, next question.
Okay, this is the second part of the inner sound question. I think you've kind of already answered it. Can one listen to the Tibetan bell music to reach the inner bell sound? Does it actually help?
You see, no, they're not connected. The inner sound, or the big bell sound, comes from the soul. It is a unique sound of pulling. It's a power, not just a sound. A sound has no power. This is a power that looks like a sound. So the bell sound that we talk about coming from the soul is actually a power that comes from the soul, a pulling power, but it resonates to the mind like a sound. So when the mind listens to this power, it comes as a tune, and we say it's a bell sound. But it's not even that. You have to understand the trouble that the masters have to explain these things in language and in the mind form and in the body form. So they have to relate to something that you can understand. But this is a power that resonates in the form of a sound, and this sound is completely different to any earthly sounds. That inner sound pulls you and takes you somewhere. Earthly sounds amuse you and take you nowhere.
But you can understand why people ask this question, because when it comes to meditation, there's lots of music out there that you can buy.
It's good for relaxation. That's different. But the purpose of the saints is not to relax you in the mind, it's to get you out.
Okay, moving on to the chakras. A little statement again and two questions. In Surat Yoga, we have to concentrate on the third eye chakra, but in Kundalini Yoga, we first focus on the root chakra and then move gradually upwards. First part of the question. So does the practitioner of Surat Yoga also feel the flow of energy moving from the root chakra to the third eye chakra, like something is moving from the bottom of the spine during Simran, like in the process of Kundalini awakening?
The answer to that is yes and no. Firstly, regarding the first part of the question, which is why don't we start at the root chakra and work our way up like the yogis do? Well, this is an interesting point, because imagine you're already halfway up a mountain, right? And then a man shouts from below on the radio. He says, come down to the beginning and start ascending from the mountain, because I'm here now. I'm your instructor of how to climb the mountain. Come down to the bottom and start climbing again. Really? Is that a worth useful time? No. If you're already halfway up, why not continue from there? So actually our seat of attention when you're in the emotional realm is at the heart center. And when we fall asleep, we go to the throat center. And when we become super aware, we go to the third eye. So never we should go down. We've already conquered all of that in the lower animals, in the lower species. So really, we need to start where we already are, which is the heart center. But the master says, don't bother with that. because this is the energy systems of the yogis. It could take you years to get to one chakra to another. The masters say, how about this? If we give you a power or a secret mantra that pulls you quickly up to the eye center, which is the seat of the mind and the soul, expressing itself in the body, why not go directly there and bypass this nonsense? You know, everybody wants quick results, yeah? So the masters knew this. So human beings like quick results. I know, we'll give them a mantra, we'll tell them to focus at the third eye and start there. Because that is the divide between the physical expression and the spiritual realms. And because of this mantra, you can go to the eye center and go within. Whereas the yogis have to work their way up through many, many years, even maybe 2 or 3 lifetimes, to get to the 6th chakra, or the third eye point. They call it chakra, it's the third eye point. And masters say, don't bother with all that. Here's the mantra, go straight there. So imagine how jealous the yogis would be if they knew this. But they have to go through this Kundalini awakening and all of this. And yet, the initiate of a perfect living master could go straight to the eye center and start working from there. Yeah.
Thank you. The second part is, and do all the chakras below automatically get activated when we activate our third eye chakra?
No, because the chakras are energy centers. Their job is to keep the body functioning in its form. Now, we don't understand how life manifests in a lifeless elemental body. It is because of the presence of the chakras empowered by the mind that allows the body to work and operate. Now, this is a science that was understood in the past, not so much now. Because now with modern science, we dissect everything to small parts, and we want to look at things at a molecular level, which loses the whole picture. But if you've ever really thought about it, and philosophers did in the past, sit there and thinking the marvel of the human form, how it operates, how it can do all these marvelous things, how it even walks. And then it looks at the rock. The rock is made of the same stardust as a human being. Yet the rock doesn't walk, move, build, or construct things. It doesn't talk, it doesn't write poetry. And they think to themselves, so what is the difference? They're both made of the same stuff. The difference is of these energy centers that living things contain, chakras. Animals have them as well, not just humans. And these energy centers were discovered by the early sages in India, what we call Adi Yogi. Adi Yogi dates back to 26,000 years ago. And he was able, through his own power, because he descended from the astral realm, to meditate upon himself and discover these energy centers of how the body works. We look at it biologically. The heart beats, the stomach does its thing, kidneys work. We don't understand what drives them. We give some intellectual reasoning. Oh, it's because it's alive. What does that mean? What is that life? Where does it come from? How does it enter a dead body and makes it alive? We see dead bodies going to the grave or cremated. What's missing? They still got all their parts. Why aren't they moving? Why aren't they working? Because this life that energizes the chakras is missing. So the chakras just stop. So these yogis thought, okay, if these chakras that we now see, these energy centers, cause the bodies to move and activate and do all the things they do, can we enhance them? So some yogis said, yes, we can. We can increase the power of these and make it do supernatural things. So the yogis originally were concerned with what we call riddhi siddhis, or powers, that enable them to fly, enable them to levitate, enable them to put their hand in burning coal and not be burnt, and all these things, which are all possible with the chakras, but nothing to do with spirituality. None of these things gave you any awareness of who you are and what you are. So from the saint's point of view, why bother with all this? Go straight to the realization state of who you are, and from there, go home to your real happiness, real joy and bliss. That is your true nature, not this experimenting with this science. They didn't have science then, they were doing this chakra business. Now we have science that dismiss the chakras and say, no, we're going to look at the molecules and how they work. Nothing of this brings us joy and peace and bliss.
Thank you. Still staying with the chakras. Ishwar Puriji used to say the following in discourses. First thing to do is to stabilize yourself. Learn how to feel you are inside your head before starting anything. To be able to stay there You have to imagine that this body is a house with 6 floors. 6 floors because the 6 chakras act like floors. So the question is, so how can we increase the power of imagination to perform this step?
You see again, Ishwarji came from a school of thinking that was based upon the past ideas of imagination. And in order for the practitioner to feel that they're doing something once initiated, and because they found it so difficult, particularly Westerners, see, Westerners are very logical thinking. So Ishwarji had to come up with an idea of how Westerners could imagine them raising up their consciousness in a fake way. As they said, fake it until you make it, yeah? So he created this concept of the 6 floors, representing the 6 chakras, 6 layers, because a lot of people already knew about the chakras in the West and the concept. So he said, with the power of imagination, you can imagine yourself sitting there and so on. Yes, it's okay. Don't get too bogged down about the 6 floors and some of the details given. Actually, if you place yourself at the eye center and you sit and wait, then the doors will be open to you when the time is right for you. But some people cannot place themselves at the eye center naturally, even though the expression or projection of your consciousness into the body and into the world comes from there. That is the source of the soul and the mind knotted together, naturally. So theoretically, if you shut off the senses by closing your eyes, sitting comfortably, keeping the body, you should be able to naturally go to the eye center. Some people find it very difficult to go to their origin because they're so immersed in the body, they're so immersed in the world that they cannot even do that. Even so, it's their natural ability. They've even lost their natural ability to be their human self. They're more like an animal. So Ishwarji created this idea of using the imagination to place yourself there so that you can have a focal point from which you can within look. It's very, very powerful. It can work. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. So you have to try it and see. But actually, ultimately, if you can sit at the eye center and stabilize yourself and place yourself, that is where spirituality begins. So that's why Ishwarji said you must stabilize yourself at the eye center before you can do anything spiritual, which is absolutely true. Because spirituality starts where the body leaves, yeah? You're crossing a region. It doesn't start anywhere else. That's all physical and energy systems. There, real spirituality or knowledge, gyan, starts there at the eye center. So all holy masters say, get to that point by hook or by crook, whatever works for you, right? Get to that point, and from there, once you've stabilized your awareness there, then you knock at the door. And what does that mean? You do the Simran. So the Simran of the holy masters, or some mantra yogi gave you if you're going down the yogic route. Because yogis could also access the astral realm and the causal realm. But as we explained earlier, it's a different experience. So, but the idea is that you use this mantra, knock at the door and wait patiently. And when the time comes that your karma is wrapped up in this world, you've done sufficiently here, that is not going to be pulled to this creation so much, then you can be levitated. Otherwise, you won't hear or see anything within, because you still have too much going on here. But let's say within you comes that feeling that I don't care anymore. What goes on here? Let it be. And at the same time, you feel that you want to know the truth. Suddenly within you says, I'm deluded by all what I see. I'm confused. I want to know the truth of all this. It doesn't make sense to me. So what happens is now you become a seeker. You're seeking the truth and you're also fed up. Perfect formula for a master, because that's what he wants. He wants you to get to that state. He said, okay, if you're really fed up and you really want to know the truth, I'll show you. But until you reach that point, then he says, okay, you can carry on experimenting with the world. You think there's still some mileage left in this nonsense? Go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. I can't go against your will. After all, you and me are one. Yeah? How can I go against your will? Which is where the concept of will comes into this. People think that they have free will and that why doesn't the Lord intervene? How can he intervene? Even if they're doing wrong. Because it is their will. And their will is the same as him. He can't go against his own will, even if it's individuated. If they want to have that level of experience, and they want to go down that route, he says, okay, go ahead. But there's still a pull from within that I say that the masters come. Once the soul has been marked for salvation, then the master relentlessly pursues them life after life, incarnation after incarnation, to bring them back into his fold and to give them the instruction they need to go home. This connection you have with a perfect living master is not a random event. It's not a chance. It has been started many lifetimes back. At least 10 lifetimes. And now you come into the company of a perfect saint and you're initiated and you think, oh, I'm lucky. Oh, this is my chance meeting. No. The whole thing has been a preparation in the past to bring you to this point. This is the love that the master has, relentlessly pursuing you. No matter how imperceptive, no matter how obtuse, how negative you may be, the master relentlessly pursues you life after life, giving you bits of knowledge here and there to awaken that spiritual idea for him, even if it's a religion or something, just to get that idea that it's something more than the physical. And then when you're ready to really embrace the truth, then he appears and he presents himself to you as if it's the first time. And it's not. So this is why, how can you not love such a one who has spent incarnation after incarnation pursuing you with unselfish intention, but just to bring you home, just to save you, no other intention. He doesn't want to be worshipped. He doesn't want to be even praised. He just wants to be listened to, because it is your salvation that he's interested in. He's already saved. What does he need this hassle for? But because of the connection of love, the master appears and he pulls you. You know? So this whole adventure in creation is a remarkable thing when you really open it up, you know, when you really look at it. And those ones who are enlightened and see it from a bigger perspective, like, you know, somebody standing on a tall mountain can see far greater lands. And they can even predict the rain is coming. In 3 days it will rain. And the people at the bottom man said, how do you know? He said, I can see. He said, oh, he's a seer, he's a sage, he's a saint. He knows something we do not, because he's standing on a mountain. Yeah? If you go with him on the mountain, you'll do the same thing. He's no ability better than you, other than the fact he's on the mountaintop. If you come and join him on the mountain, you'll see the same thing. So this is why saints say, don't worship me, the body. I'm just like you. But I'm standing on the top of the mountain. Worship that. Worship truth. Worship the fact that I'm on the top of the mountain and I can see further. So this is why the Gurus and the Sants and the saints are trying to explain to us. None of them come with ego. They're all very humble when you listen to their stories. And you think, how can they be so humble? Because they know the truth that there's no difference between you and them. It's just that they have a different level of awareness, which you can have. So what makes them different to you? None. But if somebody is going around saying, I'm this and I'm so-and-so, you should worship me, then run a mile. They're deluded. They're not a master. So, you know, this interesting relationship between master and disciple is a subject for another day, and it's a fascinating one, which disciples themselves take for granted. It's only when they actually get to a certain point in their level of awareness and they see who the master is and the whole show has been set up for them, they go, wow, this is not just in this lifetime, this is going back 10 lifetimes or more. And then they get to understand the agreement made in such kind. When the individuated unit of consciousness left the totality of consciousness, you call Satgurus or God, and came here to have an experience with a promise that at the end of the time you'll be rescued. So of course you happily go along with it. People say, why did I agree to this nonsense of life? He said, you happily agreed. Why? Because you knew you were going to be rescued, and you knew you cannot be harmed. Yes, the coverings you're wearing, like your clothes, can burn and you can discard them. But the you, the real you, cannot be harmed. You're indestructible. Even if I kill your body, destroy your astral form, remove the causal form, you still exist. In all these states, you exist alone. Nothing can take that away. The proof here is when you go to sleep. You forget all this world. You may be a king with a palace. When you go to sleep and you go into the dream state, none of that exists. You don't have any name, fame there. You don't have any of these things. How easy you can blot out by cancelling the senses your existence. Can it be real? But what is the thing that remains? You're still aware of yourself even in a dream state. That's the only thing you can count upon. I exist. That's the only thing I can be sure of. Everything else can come and go depending on the senses. But I still continue to be. That's the concept of eternity. And the same thing happens in the astral realm. When you leave your astral body and you travel to the causal, you still exist. The astral body is gone. The sense perceptions have gone. Then you realize you don't need senses. So in the causal realm, there are no senses. You don't need them. You realize this was a false body and that you only experience creation through the five senses. But now you can experience it through something else, an expanded sense of awareness, which is far more than the five senses. The five senses are limited. But if you only know the creation through the five senses, you think this is the only way to experience it. So at each stage, you're unveiling your own glory, the majesty of who you really are, the power that contains within you. And this is why when we're in the physical realm and we feel this body is all real and that this is the only reality, we go along with it. But if we were to see who we really are, nobody will worship this body like they do now. Believe me, they will not. They will just use it practically. They say, okay, this is a tool, like my jacket. Nobody worships their coat. They put it on the rack and forget about it. And when they need it on a cold day, they put it on. And then they have, oh, this is a nice coat, really feels good. They suddenly appreciate it. Why wasn't it appreciated before? Because it was no use to them before. Same with his body. When you have it, you think, wow, this is great. Okay, let me adorn it this way. Let me do this to it. Oh, no, it's great. Nobody uses the body for its intended purpose, which is to seek the truth within it, because it's a unit. It houses our unit of consciousness, our truth. Yeah. So when we put the coat on, we suddenly don't decide we're the coat. And if other people start saying, hey, you red dress or red coat, come here. He said, no, I'm not the coat. He said, no, but that's what I see. That's all I see, the outer covering. No, but I'm me. There's something inside this coat. Oh, I don't know, I can't see that. Red coat, come here. That is how we are. That is how deluded we are in this world. We make identifications based upon what our senses determine is real. But then you can even banish all these people. Look how many people are in your life. Yeah? When you go to sleep, they don't exist. Where have they gone? Maybe one or two of them appear in a dream out of hundreds. Yeah? And so, okay, you see them in a dream. You have a closer association with them in the astral realm. So therefore you see them in a dream. Then you meet them in the astral realm. And you say, oh, it's great to meet you friends here again. We have a long association. And then you meditate in the astral realm. And you withdraw your attention to the causal realm. And those disappear. Maybe one remain. One person out of the handful that were there in the astral realm. He says, I recognize you. You're from there. He said, yeah, we're buddies together. We're units of mind. We were created at the same time, so we were more closely related. But then in the causal realm, you cross again through spiritual practice. You cross into Par-Brahm, you become just a soul, and even that falls away. Then you realize none of these were reality. None of these people were real. They were all imagined. They were all part of the imagination spectrum that we call life and delusion and illusion. And then you only exist. What happens when you go to Par-Brahm? Only you exist. You've merged with the master. There's not even a master as such. There's just you. Now what? You and the master power become one. And now what to do? So the method of approach from that point onwards is completely different. There's no meditation there. The pull there is to seek the truth. It's only grace. Grace pulls you to something called love. Love of the truth. Love of what? Again, this term used, divine love. Masters talk about love. What does it mean? There is no word to describe the connection between the soul and the super soul. So, that pull that you have within you, the nearest thing that Master could find on this earth was love. So say love. But actually, that's not true. How can you just love something? You can't make yourself love something. It's a pull. It's an automatic response. But you have to give it a term. And what is this pull? When we feel this pull towards a master, let's say, or towards a teaching or a teacher, we say it is love. Because it resembles love, but it's not a love. It's different. It's a pull of yearning for the truth to become whole once again. The unit of consciousness wants to go back to its whole. And that pull of truth is what pulls it. And that pull in the human mind resembles love. So when they say you must love your master, and a lot of people say, I can't love the master, I just don't have that feeling. I said, love the truth then. I say, love the truth that is represented by that one, and the master who's the embodiment of that truth will automatically come. So there's a lot of terms used in spirituality which are misleading because of language. Yeah, there's no language in such kind. There's no need to express anything. There's immediate awareness of all things at the same time. No need to communicate.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's a little bit extended answer.
Yeah, it's okay. Right, I've got a couple of questions around spirituality. Why is spiritual progress slow in the astral and causal plane compared to the physical plane?
It's only, again, this is another play on words, it's only slow from the human point of view. Because 1 Earth year equals 100, let's say, years there. So therefore time runs slower there. Apparently so. And I use the word apparently so. Because when you compare it to human life here, 1 year here has 100 years have gone there. But when you're there, you have to wait 100 years to have 1 year here on Earth. So when looking at it from the astral perspective, it looks like time is very slow because your experience has just been physical. You've come from the physical, now you're in the astral, and it appears that time operates differently, which it does. So that's where the concept of slowness comes about. Time is actually an illusion itself. It's a fixed entity. And then the causal realm is even worse, because the causal realm is 300 years to 1 Earth year. So 3 times the extension. So when you go into each of these realms and you look downwards, you see everything's moving very fast here. And when in a human form, we say, oh, life is so slow, it's a drag. Yeah? But, there, it's just like... So when you go to the causal realm and you see life coming in and leaving this earth from birth to death, it's just like this. That's why some yogas, you reach that state, they used to say life is just this. Why are they saying that? Because at the click of a finger, the time it takes to click your finger is the length of time of a human life from the causal realm. So you can imagine how they say everything happens quickly here. Yeah? So that's the illusion of time.
Thank you. How does the process of spiritual merit work, and what can we do to earn the highest spiritual merit?
Spiritual merit really means seeking the truth. If you become a truth seeker within, earnestly so, sincerely so, no matter what the cost, merit is there. Now, in what form do we get this merit? Masters have variously separated this type of seeking or this type of spiritual practice, which is all revolving around seeking and remembrance, because seeking has 2 parts, remembrance and also the anticipation of moving forward along this spiritual journey. So the anticipation and the remembrance make up the seeking. So when masters try to describe how to be a perfect seeker, for those ones who don't naturally have that yearning within them, he says, okay, we're going to create something called seva. Yeah, let's create seva. So you have to do some activity which is selfless, because you're not getting anything out of it. You're doing something for an organization or for the master to benefit him, which keeps you focused in this way of thinking. It's a natural, clever method. Think about that. Then similarly, go to satsang, associate with like-minded. Okay, you go with the like-minded ones that keep you on track. But the real intention is to build up your seeking power so that you naturally become a seeker without all these things. So then if I put you in the top of a mountain and you are still seeking, the seeking yearning has not stopped, because now it has manifested within you in its true form. But to get there, for some people, they need to go through this whole organizational thing. So masters make use of certain facilities to become a true seeker. And so this is not easy for a normal human being living in the world to suddenly become fully aware and to seek the highest truth. It has to be given to them in drips. Because to be an ultimate seeker means detaching from this world. And imagine you're a family man or woman, you're in a career and everything. How can you detach from all these things just like that? But you cannot attach. You cannot detach from anything. You can only attach yourself to something greater, which naturally means you detach from the lower things. So masters say by providing these activities you do in, say, a religious or spiritual organization, what that means is gradually building up your ability to detach yourself from the world by giving you a greater pleasure. So when you sit in the company of the master, of the saints, or the enlightened ones, you feel happy. You forget all the worldly things. And if you do this enough, you become convinced that this higher feeling is better than the lower feelings of stress and strife and struggle that you have in the world. So you crave it all the more, which is why people chase after the masters and chase after things, because they want this experience for themselves. They want this continuously, because inwardly, the mind even recognizes this as a greater pleasure than the worldly trinkets and trashes of the world. So this system has been created to generate that feeling of seeking within us, and it's ultimately that seeking that connects us with the truth within. Because if you seek for something, you're going to find it. Yeah? If you look for something you've lost, you're going to find it. But if you don't look for it, how are you ever going to find it? If you say, I've lost something and I'm sitting here, I don't want to look for it. You say, well, how are you ever going to find it? The whole creation will finish before you find it.
Thank you. I've got a few questions related to the planes. How is it decided which plane of consciousness or realm an initiate goes after death?
It depends on what they've attained in this lifetime. Because if they have, say, meditated and made good spiritual progress, and they've got to the point now where they're not attached to the worldly emotions, then if they're not attached to emotions, then they cross the emotional plane and go straight to the causal plane, the mind plane. If they've made some progress where they're not attached to the physical anymore, they've lost their kind of allurement of the physical, attachment to the physical, but they still embody their emotions, they still, enjoy the emotional experience, then they go to the astral realm. And if they're fortunate enough and do not associate with themselves with the imposter mind, that is their ego, their I, as a body, as a character, the jiv, and they only want to know the soul, their real self, they go to Parbrahm. So this decides, and the mechanism is by what level of attachment you have to these restrictions that you have carrying with you. So for example, if you're attached to the world, even if you've meditated all your life, you've been a model example of disciple, but you've still got so many attachments to the world, you have to come back. Because you go where your desires are. And let's say you've got no meditation to your credit, but you have no desire to be here. You only think of the master as everything. The master is everything, the truth is everything. Nothing can bring you back to this world. That's the real secret. Yeah. But the masters prescribe a system of living here to cause this detachment. But if you're very fortunate, you naturally detach when you hear the truth, because you're a real truth seeker, which is rare. Real truth seekers are rare individuals who, they don't need to meditate, they don't need to do any spiritual practice. Upon hearing the truth and coming into contact with one of the truth, that transmission of energy of that truth awakens within them, and they become a real truth seeker. They don't need to be told to be a true seeker. They don't need to be told to remember this through meditation or some spiritual practice. They automatically do it. No instruction needed. Yeah, they don't need an instruction manual. But for those ones who are not naturally that way, but they're going that way, when they're initiated by a perfect living master, they're put in what we call list B. And this secondary list means they're likely to have to come back, which means it's not natural for them to seek the truth. When they're faced upon life's difficulties, they are still attached to life and its problems, and they focus all their energies on that. They don't just dismiss it. It doesn't matter, it'll pass away. Everything passes. Everything, including my own body, will pass away. They don't have this awareness that this too shall pass away. They believe that this is necessary to interact with this in some sort of emotional way, rather than being practical. Yeah? So for these people, they have to come back. Because when even if they've done spiritual practice, they've chased master everywhere, they've sat in 100 satsangs, they've listened to 100 discourses, read all the books, meditated for 40 years, they're still attached to this world. All that's happened is they've cleaned up a little bit, because they were so engrossed in this world that master gently eases them out to a point where they're still attached, but not as bad as before. But that fact that they're attached to this world, or the people in this world, or even their houses, means they have to come back.
But suppose they are attached because they have to do something, maybe out of duty?
No, that's different. That's not
right.
attachment.
Okay.
Performing duty is not an attachment.
Okay.
Yeah? For example, you're not attached to house cleaning. You do it because it's a necessity. Otherwise, germs will thrive and you'll die. Practicality is different. That's why Babaji always says, take a practical approach. Be practical. Being practical is not an emotional experience. It's not an attachment experience. You sweep the floor, not because you're attached to it, but you have to. So doing one's duties and responsibilities in a practical manner, without the emotional input of attachment, is what we need to do. We can't stop living as human beings. Otherwise, why did Master initiate people who are living in families? Because then theoretically it would not be possible for them, but it can be, because they can still perform their family duties in a detached way. Why? Because they're attached to the truth, so they're constantly seeking the truth, and while they're sweeping the floor, their mind is elsewhere. They're still sweeping the floor, they're still attending to the baby, they're still attending to the husband or wife, but their mind is somewhere else, but they don't tell them that. See, they don't tell the husband, because imagine telling you, actually, I'm not thinking of you now, I'm thinking of something else, so you cheater. You know? but saints or people of higher awareness, they're naturally like this. You focus on that thing, that is your state, natural state. You naturally focus on your natural state. So that detachment from the physical means that you still perform all your physical duties and responsibilities, but you do so, let's say, dispassionately. But sometimes you have to pretend that you care. You know, when somebody's crying and hollering, there, I'm really sorry for your feelings. You have to play the part. So the masters are the biggest actors. They're not interested in the mind. They don't care. Which is why when some people listen to Babaji answering his questions, they say, oh, he's quite harsh and he's quite direct, and he doesn't seem to be sympathetic to them and going kuchi kuchi poo to them. No, he tells them hard, why are you bothering with this? Go home, get on with it. Because that's the truth. Because if he pampers to the mind, what will happen? They'll keep on running to him with the same problems. Oh, please, pat me here so I feel better and I can go back and do the same mistakes. He said, no, I'm not going to give you any sympathy. I'm not going to empower your mind to carry on doing this nonsense. Just get the hell out of here. Meditate and get out. And that's kind of his stance. And a lot of people think, oh, he's so hard, he's so this, he doesn't understand. He does understand, he wants you out. And he knows that he's not going to pamper to you. You know? Yes.
So is your attachment a stronger pull back here than your karma?
The attachment is karma. If you had no karma, you cannot be attached. If the karmas are still unsettled, like for example, you've created new karmas here, and you're attached to the consequences, you have to come back. This attachment, this karmic form, actually comes in the form of attachment and desire. So attachment and desire brings you back here, and we call that karma. But what is karma? Karma is an attachment and desire. This is a new karma you create to bring you back here. And even if you're not fulfilled, intention is karma. So let's say you want to buy this big house, but you die in a car crash, and if you really wanted to live in a big house, a grand house like this, you have to come back for that. You never actually did anything for it, but the intention was there, and just because of that desire, you come back to fulfill that until you're no longer interested. So the attachment and desire is driven by karma, but it's also the cause of karma. It's an interesting phenomenon.
Why is that pulling you back? Because once you leave your body, surely the other side would be more attractive?
No, because you go where your desires are. You're focused on the desires, which determines what you see. And that determines what happens to you at the time of death. This is the law of karma. This is the Karl's law. This is why I said it is so stringent, no one can keep it. Because if we were made fully aware of our reality, why would anybody want to be here? But that's closed off to us. So all we have are desires and attachments leading us from place to place. Those desires and attachments make our personality. We only see that. Right now, you only see your desires and attachments. You don't know anything else. If I say to you, think about this, and you say, oh, I don't know, I can't think of that, I didn't even thought about it. This is your desire, this is your attachment, and that pulls you. Same in the astral realm. The astral realm is such a more beautiful expression of it, with bells and whistles, yeah, and pink bows, yeah, if you want it like that. But it's still an attachment and desire realm. Same with the causal.
So you can create attachments in the astral?
You don't create them, you live them.
Right.
You don't create anything in the astral realm. The astral realm is a place where only your karma is played out. You can't create new karma there. Yeah, you can only create it here where you have no knowledge. In the astral realm, you have full knowledge of the entirety of your life that's to come. So what is the need to make a choice? Choice doesn't exist there. Free will doesn't exist in the astral realm. All the beings living there have a timeline of events. They already see the entire plan laid out before them. Now they're just going along with it. They're going now to enjoy the experience. Because they don't have to worry about what's going to happen next. They know. So they now can focus all their energies on enjoying the experiences. Yeah? Which is why we say that they're in a happier state than us. Because we have an added problem. We don't know. So we have something called fear, hope, and anticipation. Fear, hope, and anticipation rules our life for the future. That's all we have connection with the future. We don't know what the future is. But we either hope, fear, or anticipation, which is neutral. And those three bind you to the future. They create your future. They're the ones that keep you going to the future so you don't just stay still. Because you're motivated by those three. But when you are in the astral realm, you don't have them. You don't need them. Because all the future's laid out to you. So there's no need to make a choice based upon fear, hope, and anticipation.
I assume that a master is more powerful than Karl.
Of course, the master, if you're going to talk about power, comes from the realm of Karl originally. Remember, Karl is one of the original 16 signs. There's two parts to Karl. There's a lesser Karl, which created time and illusion, and there's Mahakal, which created the entire creation below Satgurus. There's two parts to Karl. Even that's another subject. And the Mahakal, or the great Karl, the fifth attribute of the Lord, out of the 16 attributes, he was the fifth one. And he was the ego attribute, which had to be created to create separation, because ego means I exist and you are separate. Yeah. Now that none of the other attributes have that, so he's unique, Karl. So by the very nature of his creation, he had to fall from grace, because he wanted to separate himself from the others and be worshipped as a god. So therefore, now he had to create a whole realm for all this to happen. So when Satgurus gave him the tools of creation, entrusted him with his care, he misused them. And as the saints say, he created a sewer where a garden was intended. But beyond the realm of Karl, creation proceeds as originally planned, in its wondrous and glorious form.
So like here, you have higher courts, you have the European court, or whatever. Why can't a master overrule Karl?
Why would he want to? Karl is his brother. Masters are one of the attributes. They are Purush, the attribute, one of the 16 attributes. And you have Karl, who is the ego attribute. They're both sons of Satgurus, both sons of the Lord, each one given a role to play. Masters do not have their own will. They live by the will of their Father. That's why Jesus said, I have come to do the will of my Father, not my own will. Because masters don't have their own will. So why are they going to go against Satgurus' design? He's designed this imperfect creation so that the souls can experience something other than perfection, so that when they go back into the Satgurus, they're jumping up with joy that they've been rescued and saved. They haven't been saved from anything except themselves. Yeah, but they go back in joy. And we call these, in fact, the saints have now separated two types of souls. The ones residing in such kind, we call them bunts. These souls haven't gone anywhere. They're just in this state of bliss. And the souls that return become hunts. These hunt souls are jumping up and down. And the bunt souls say, why are you so happy? You know, your experiences say, oh, you don't know what you're missing. Yeah? And they say, we've just been through a wonderful experience. You know, we really appreciate this now, even more. So this whole epic drama has been created. We call it the sport of the divine, or the play of the divine. Is exactly for the souls, the units of consciousness, to experience this wonderfulness.
What is a master allow God to interfere in initiate's progress?
I think you've misunderstood the last statement. Karl and the master are same. All these souls are manifested from Satgurus. Each one attribute has a role to play. Why would the master, who is Dayal, his role is mercy. Why would mercy want to interfere with ego? Ego has a valid claim just as he does to creation. If this creation is to continue according to Satgurus' design, and incidentally your design, then all the souls have to go around this merry-go-round for the fun and adventure. Why would you want to cancel that out? But in a way, masters do invade Karl's domain. An agreement was made with Karl that when a master comes, the brother of Karl, comes into Karl's domain, an agreement had to be struck. Otherwise, how would masters enter this realm? And that agreement was made like this. So Karl said, okay, brother, you can come into the domain to rescue souls. But you cannot use any powers. You cannot use any magic. You can use nothing except just talking the truth, telling them the truth. That is the only thing you can do. You cannot do anything else to win the souls. You cannot perform miracles despite what's attributed to them. None of these things. He said, but I, on the other hand, can do every cheat to keep the souls trapped. Obviously, the master had to agree. And why did the masters agree in the very beginning, the first Param Sant Satguru? Because they knew that although they're only going to be able to talk, their talk carries the authority of Satgurus upon them, which supersedes Karl. It comes from the father. So Karl lost out on this deal. Eventually he's going to lose. Because when the masters come, when they speak the authority of the Satgurus, that authority is transmitted to the souls that waken the slumbering souls in creation and make them queer and question everything and make them want to seek the true home. See, Karl, in his ego and megalomaniac, he overlooked that. So that is the one fault that Karl has, which we benefit from as individuated souls. Because now the master can come and just using the power of the words that carries the light of Satgurus upon in it, the power of the true Lord, he can transform us. He can make us into seekers. He can transform us. And he relentlessly pursues us life after life in this progress. Karl can do nothing for it, except he creates deceptions. He creates philosophies, science, and religions to deceive the souls to worship an entity without going within. Separate. He keeps the duality going. There is a God and there's you. Worship that. Masters say, go within yourself, become self-realized, so you know who the hell you are, and then you know who the hell God is. The process is completely different from spirituality to religion. Yes?
Okay, still talking about the planes. Can you explain life in the astral plane? Do all the levels of consciousness exist simultaneously all the time, but we just don't have any awareness of it?
Well, I've already explained the astral realm sufficiently and time is running out here, so I'm going to go to the second part of the question. Yes, all levels of consciousness exist at the same time. And as you awaken to each one, you become aware of that level. It's not that it is created. Then you become aware of it as you transcend through the levels of consciousness. But all these levels of consciousness are contained within the totality of consciousness. So again, although we speak about realms and levels, they don't exist. Again, masters created the concept of realms and levels to divide the layers of consciousness, of awareness that you go through. The mind needs things that it can comprehend. So we create this idea of levels, but actually they're levels of consciousness, not places. That's why and all of these exist within your own consciousness, within your head. So when you meditate and go within, you can experience far bigger worlds than this, because they're not places, they're conscious levels of consciousness. And that's the reality of creation. That you've created a physical body in which you've housed this consciousness within it, and you've created expressions of senses that sense into the physical things around you. You created all the scenery, everything, a beautiful play to take part in, to convince you that something exists externally to you. But actually, all of this that you've created is projected from you. The proof is, simply close your eyes and suddenly the vision is gone. Nothing exists. You could have an elephant walking past you, you wouldn't even know. So what is reality? You can simply close your eye and shut it off. And if you closed all the senses off, you wouldn't even know that there's a world. If you can do that, then that means you are the projector of everything you see. For example, take one of the senses like the eyes. The eyes only see patterns and colours. Okay? It is the mind that makes sense of it and say this is a flower, this is a chair. These senses, the eyes don't know what a chair is, what a flower is, what a table is. Your mind interprets it. It is the mind as the source, you, the jiva, the individual, the I, that is the source of all experience. You use the senses to connect with the outside world, you pick up essential experience, and you translate it into a meaning. The senses themselves are not intelligent. Yeah? So have you ever wondered how that happens? How is it that we can just simply look through a physical eye? Because when they've created an eye in a laboratory and they place on the camera, all they see is images. The circuitry behind doesn't recognize what it is. But when they're programmed to say, right, if these shapes form in this way, this is a tree, or if it's like this is a chair, then it says, oh, this is a chair and this is a tree. The eye itself, the lens, doesn't know what it's looking at. It's the interpreter who says it is this and this is that. And if it's open to interpretation of the mind, how do you know that's real? When you're looking at a tree, you say it's a tree. Why? Because somebody told you it was. If as a baby you're taught this is a demon, a hissing, spitting demon, that these tentacles will come and grab you in the middle of the night, you'll believe that to be true. And when somebody else says, no, this is just a tree, it's beautiful, it has flowers, it's pleasant, so no, it's a demon. Convince that one that he's not looking at a demon. So what is our sense of reality? So the way is to go within and see for yourself. Once you go within, you start becoming more and more aware, intuitively at first. Long before you see anything, your intuition is awakened. And you start feeling that things are not what they appear to be. And great philosophers did this, like the famous Greek philosophers during the Hellenistic period, going back 500 BC to 1 AD. And these great Greek philosophers like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they used to sit there and think about such things. It bothered them. They would say, am I seeing that tree because the tree is there? Or am I creating the image of a tree in my mind and projecting it out? Because when I open my eyes, I suddenly see the tree. When I close my eyes, it doesn't exist. So am I creating the tree, or is the tree already there? And they should debate these things. Very real question. Others were fighting and killing each other, and these Greek philosophers were sitting there debating all these things, and many other things besides. They never came to a real conclusion. But then the spiritual, Pythagoras is very spiritual. And when he was asked this same question, he said, no problem. He said, both are created at the same time. There's no one before the other. He said, both are the same. Both realities are true. And then that answered that long question. They couldn't think of that. These great philosophers couldn't understand that until Pythagoras came along.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we remember all events of this life and previous lifetimes, even when we go to different levels of higher awareness, such as Parbrahm and Sachkhand?
Yes, it's whether we want to. When you travel in the mind realms, as you increase your level of awareness, you become more and more aware of your past time here on earth, past lives and so on. Ultimately, so when you enter the astral realm, your astral being lives for about, say, 3,000 Earth years. So that means all the human forms or animal forms you've had from that one astral form projected into what you remember all of those. So you can certainly remember them even when you go to the astral realm. Then when you go to the causal realm, that is like 3 million years. So you've had lots of astral forms. When you go to the causal realm, you remember all the astral forms and all the physical forms. Yeah? Because you have that awareness from that point of view, you can remember all of these things. That's why when people say you go to the causal realm, they say you go to the Akashic record. The Akashic records is within high mind. It's not a place. But again, this is where people try to write it in some way that's meaningful. You know, you'll see your Akashic record there laid out as if there's some sort of library of scrolls. It's not. It's just that you have the ability to remember entirety of your existence. Like here in the physical, there's nothing below, so you remember your physical. If someone said to you, you know, can you remember your life up to date? So yeah, sure, I can remember most parts. You know that you were physical, you know that you were born, you know who your mother was, you know where your education was, where your first workplace, your pets. How do you remember all of that? If you're like a goldfish, you only have 30 seconds of memory. You don't remember how you even got there in the bowl. So human beings have an ability to remember their life here on earth, entire past, which is a remarkable thing, because animals do not. You know, tigers, monkeys don't, no animal remembers its story. They have impressions, feelings, consequences that they feel, but not the actual events. When you go to the astral realm, you remember all your physical lives in every form, not just human, but all the other non-human forms. You remember everything. And then when you go to the causal realm, you remember all your astral forms that had all these physical forms. So imagine how much data is collected there at the causal realm. That's why the yogis hailed it, wow, this is a great Akashic record, shows you everything. That's what they mean by this. It's just an expression. And when you go to the soul realm, of course, you remember the entirety of your existence in the mind realm. And you say to yourself, wow, what a wonderful play. Wow, I really enjoyed that. Great. Even the ups and downs. Even if you went to hell. Because the soul is indestructible. It doesn't fear hell from that point of view. It looks upon it and says, wow, really incredible. How negative you can get. From the ultimate positive, the most negative you can get to experience that. Yeah? Just to witness it because you can. You're all powerful. You want to experience everything in creation. So you can experience the very negative and the very positive. All in illusion. It's all illusion, of course. And then you don't care, because when you reach the point of the soul, in the lower part of Parbrahm, yes, you have recollection of what you've been through. But then, the master within you that you've merged tells you to turn around and look upward and forget the past. The moment you look upward and swim in the Mansarava lake there, which is the purification lake of all connections with the imposter mind, that's all forgotten. You never look back. You never care. What you've been through, what you've done, nothing of any interest. You're only looking forward. And that's the reason why this Mansarava lake exists in the lower part of Parbrahm, that takes you to the higher part.
Thank you. How do I increase faith on this path? Because I think this is the only thing that is stopping me from having inner experiences inside.
You can't make yourself increase in faith. It happens as a result of your seeking, your determination, your sincerity, and your earnestness. Faith is based upon experience and is based upon need. So when you have a feeling within you to pursue the spiritual path, that's grace. The grace has come into you to seek it. Now, when you have an experience of positivity associated with that seeking, you naturally have faith. So as you seek and you have an experience, the faith grows. That's the only way. You can't make it happen intellectually. You can't just decide, that's it, I'm going to have full faith in this. I've never met anybody who could do that. Faith only comes through experience.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions around karma. It is said that we don't add anything to our life now. We bring everything from our past. So what is meant by new karma, which is often mentioned by Babaji?
You see, everything that we're undergoing now, all our life events that we are undergoing, is the past karma. So the script has been written, and now we are playing our part in the script, according to the script. However, if this creation is to continue, then there has to be some means by which you can remain in the illusion. This is by Carl's design. So again, we call this perfectly imperfect creation. Why? Because built into this karmic experience that you're undergoing is about 20% of what we call choice making. Now, although the choices are preloaded and they're conditioned, you take ownership of those choices and therefore you create consequences. All of this is done in the mind. The mind takes ownership, it creates consequences, it believes in that, and therefore it has to come back. Now we call this choice making with the attendant consequences new karma. So whilst our script is written, built into the script, there's moments when we make choices. And these choices are based upon our preferences, our conditioning, the impressions of our sanskars, the mind. And that determines what the choices are. And these choices, more importantly, are loaded with an expectation of a good or a bad outcome. So if you make a choice based upon whether you think this is a good or bad outcome, or there's a consequence associated with it, then you create new karma. Let's say you have risen above these karmic realms, and now you're having to make choices like ISTAuk, but you're indifferent. You're doing it practically, like Babaji says, take a practical point. You don't have any emotional feeling associated with it. It is nearest there. It, like, for example, your coffee is bad for your health, so you decide on a practical basis to drink tea. Not based on an emotional, oh, I want this, I love it, and therefore there's a consequence. You do it because it is necessary, it's practical. So a person who's elevated, he makes choices too. You have to have this expression, but the difference is the intentions and the reasoning behind is completely different to an emotional being. A person is attached to the consequence of choice. Yeah, they make a choice in a dispassionate way because it's practical. Such a one does not incur karma.
Thank you. Okay, bit of a statement and question at the end, still around karma. I'm a big fan of Stephen Frame, who is also known by his stage name Dynamo. He is a well-renowned magician and illusionist. While most agree that his extraordinary feats are based purely on his skill, sleight of hand, misdirection, and use of props, some have suggested that he uses black magic or some form of supernatural powers to achieve such seemingly impossible tricks. Some have even suggested that he made a pact with the devil to achieve success and fame and is now paying the karmic consequence of this through his chronic illness. Is there any truth in these claims, and is it harmful to watch such performers for entertainment, or should this be avoided?
Well, I'll answer the second part first. No, there's no harm whatsoever, provided you're not thinking the former. Provided you're not thinking that this is a black magician doing these things or something else. If you just see it as entertainment, then that's it. Now, he's an illusionist. What is an illusionist? A person who deceives the audience into thinking something is happening when it is not. Think about that. A magician is a master illusionist. If that is the case, no matter how remarkable that illusion is performed, it is still an illusion. But when an illusion is done very well, then the one said, oh, that's beyond our comprehension, yeah? I don't know how he did that trick. He's got black magic. He's magical. Oh, and where did he get that from? Oh, he made a pact with the devil. All this nonsense occurs. The man is just an illusionist. And he's very good at what he does. And just because we cannot understand how a rocket is sent to the space, it doesn't mean that people in Nasha are all magical beings and have supernatural power to send a rocket to space. Just because we can't build one in our back garden and send it to the moon. Yeah, that's the level of our thinking.
So the fact that he's kind of ill, there's nothing to do.
Oh, that's karma.
Okay.
He's got Crohn's disease, I know. Yeah, and he's battling with that, and that's the karma that he's born with. Long before he was an illusionist.
So there's no link?
No, there's no link. It's just humans like to play these games. They're bored. Maybe they should get onto spirituality and find a real truth for themselves, because then it wouldn't waste their time on such nonsense. But that's just the way of it. It's amusing. It's entertaining to listen to such things.
Thank you. Got a question around future events. Actually, few questions around future events.
Okay, I'm going to try to be brief. Not my favourite topic.
Okay.
People don't like the truth at this point.
Following the wars in the Middle East, are we heading for much greater conflicts and natural disasters where many millions of people will die, so that the world population comes to around 500 million within the next 10 years, as many have predicted?
Well, the second part's not true. No, the world will never come to 500 million people. Yes, I've always said that this is a decade of conflict and turmoil for the human race, right from the very beginning of it. In fact, in 2016, I mentioned this in the writings of the book.
That's the next question.
And it's going to be called at the end of the decade, a decade of disaster. That'll be the name given. Because all manner of uprisings, conflicts, and all kinds of things are going to occur here during this decade as people, as more information becomes available to the people to realize how much government is hiding. Then the greed of the merchants and everything are going to know no bounds, because they're thinking, wow, we have the governments in our hand, we can do what we want. They forget that at the bottom of all of this, the grassroots are the people. And yes, you can manipulate them so much. Eventually, those people are going to give in. They're going to rise up and go against you. Yeah. And it's just a matter of how much you can prod them and push them before that happens. And this decade is going to be marked with all. That's why you have these wars and all these settlements that are occurring, which is, you could say, is part of the great revolution that's going to occur for mankind. In order to move it further into the spiritual plane, it has to get rid of its association with the past. So now all of these things are horrific to modern humans, who thought that they had left the past behind, the barbarism of their past, but it's still going on. But they weren't quite convinced. The last thing is economy. The economy has to collapse in order for people to realize that no, we should not be greedy and everything. People should all be respected. We should all work together as a community. So bringing the world together as a community will be what starts happening in the 2030s. The world will become a community of people now, of diverse races and populations, but still a community, a kinship of humankind. And we can all work together to resolve the problems of the past. People are no longer going to say it's acceptable to have the things that we had in the past. But in order for that to happen, you know, humans, the way they are, very stubborn, you have to create a few difficulties. So in Dwapara Yuga, that started since 2012, difficulties started coming that present humans with challenges that either they change or die. So a lot of the conspiracists say, oh, we're going to annihilate each other, you know, and we're going to be left with 500 million people or something. Some, you know, so-called philosopher or some predictor has said all these things. These are all just conspiracies, they're just entertainment. But no, it's not going to be like that.
Thank you.
If anything, the population is going to increase to 12 billion.
Oh, okay. So relating to what you said previously, this question states, in your 2016 revelations of the near future, you accurately predicted the current situation in Israel and Palestine. You mentioned that countries such as Russia, China, and the USA, and some in Europe, will be involved. Will this not create World War III? In your revelations, you state the World War III will not happen.
That's right. What I was shown at that time, when I was making inquiry about what is to come, there will be no World War III. So don't worry about that. But yes, there are uprisings in which the end result will be a new world order, if you like, not in the sense of the American version of it, but in the sense that China, India, and the eastern provinces will become the industrial heart, the production heart of the world. And in fact, even the stock exchange will move over to them. So now there's going to be a conflict between the West, who's become impoverished and will be providing all the services, and the industrial heart of production, which has moved over to the East. And this is going to create a new kind of conflict between East and West, in which the East now hold the power of production. So they're going to hold the West to ransom. So, but this is more likely what's going to happen in economic war rather than World War III. If you say there's World War III economic war, I say yeah. As an economic war, World War III will occur.
Okay, so the next question was, what is going to happen in the future to our economy? That's what you were saying now.
I would say wait and see. Fun times ahead. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil the events or, you know, yeah. It's not something I'd like to talk about because it's not something that would be immediately acceptable or understood.
Okay. Okay, last question relating to this regarding future. Will there be another pandemic like what we experienced with COVID-19 where countries went into lockdown?
Yeah, there are more plagues coming. As long as human beings intensively farm animals and experiment with bugs and poisons and active biochemicals, yeah, there's going to be pandemics of sorts coming in the future. I have written about them and I have mentioned them previously, so I don't want to dwell on that point, but yes, there's a little more difficulties to come before humans learn their lesson, get it, as I mentioned earlier.
Okay, right, got a few random questions. It's about 6.
Okay.
Please shed some light on this so-called thing named the evil eye. Some believe in it and its representation can be seen in the Eastern culture, yet Babaji says it doesn't exist.
Babaji's right, it doesn't exist. You know, if everything is scripted in creation, how can anybody change or alter events? It's not possible. But to those who do not understand the concept of the script of creation and feel that they are the one in charge of their lives, they are controlling events, so they feel that, oh, I know, if this person has harmed me, then I will do some nazar or some evil to them. And therefore, the people who do this, they have the evil eye. So people made up, you could say, a story around what they feel should happen based upon coincidences. Let's say somebody does mess up and then they have a car crash. They say, yeah, I thought that I was thinking that, yeah, something's going to happen to them because I can't get away with this. Oh, I've had the evil eye on him. People just make things up. There's no evidence. It's called synchronicity, coincidences. It's like me saying, oh, because this morning I walked out with my right foot, it started raining. So every time somebody walks with their right foot out the door, it's going to rain that day. Really? It doesn't work. Yeah? Maybe 50% of the chance, by chance, is going to happen because you only have 2 feet. You're going to walk with the left or the right. Yeah? So, but there's no correlation between you stepping out the door and the rain. You made that up. So what happens is people historically, particularly in the past when intellect wasn't so developed, they're very emotionally led, they came up with all these things like the evil eye, black magic and all these things. Nobody can do these things. Imagine you could do magic. They'll be selling these trinkets and tavizis and things in Sainsbury's. Here, buy that, have this lucky charm, increase your wealth of your business, get your child married, improve your health. Just go in Sainsbury's and buy one. Why isn't it freely available? You see? And besides that, imagine you have the power to do black magic. What's the first thing you would do? You'd serve yourself, wouldn't you? You wouldn't care about upsetting somebody else. You'd make yourself a king. You'd make yourself beautiful. You had all the wealth. Why would you bother about some auntie so-and-so who's offended you? Really? Really? You have all this power. You would do it for that and not help yourself? All these people are supposed to be black magic. They live in poor housing. They live in difficult circumstances. Really? Wouldn't you actually help yourself if you had that power? Yeah? People don't have common sense. That's what's missing, actually. This is going to be the world where eventually, by the end of this century, common sense will be the rule of the day.
Okay, can I give you an example?
Go on.
It's not me.
Okay.
I know someone who, this is what she said she did,
Yeah.
and it came true for her.
Okay.
You know about the Voice newspaper, it's a black newspaper.
Yes.
And on the back page somewhere, there's normally somebody who's selling their services can do black magic and make things happen for you.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, she told me that she actually paid money to one of these services because she wanted, at the time, it was a particular job that she wanted. So there's certain things that he did. She got the job that
and
she
got the
wanted.
result.
Yeah. So
Okay.
My thing is that it was already written for her that she was going to get that job anyway.
That's right.
But she's associated with the fact that she paid money to this person.
You've answered the question.
Yeah. So that's basically what happened.
Yeah, it's by association.
Yeah.
And we do this all the time because we like to think that we're in control of the situation. If you say to somebody, hey, the script's written, you're helpless, and this, like Babaji always says, you have to go through your karma no matter what, the script is already written. Yeah, nobody wants to hear that. They said, no, but, right, I want to take charge. So, if I take an action, which I believe correlates to the result, then that's it, I've created this result. No, you haven't. Ask this lady to keep on going and see how many hits and misses you'll get. Yeah, she'll probably have more misses than hits. A lot of research has been done into this by scientists who've gone to these magician people to test it out to see have they really got any power. And the results were really appalling. Their success rate was no better than an ordinary person, just randomly saying something. This is never reported. If one person has a result that correlates, they champion, hey, this worked for me. What you don't hear is the 99 other cases that it didn't.
Yeah. Because I think the human condition is we like to be in control.
Yeah.
And if we find
Ego
out,
attribute.
this is it, and if we find out that we're not really in control, we're going to start questioning, well, why am I here?
Yeah.
Some of us have.
Well, no, we want to gain control by using black magic or by whatever means. We don't care. We just want to be in charge of our life, and we want to control it the way we want it, not the way destiny is decreed.
Yeah, but some people won't accept that destiny.
Yeah. Well, they don't accept. That's why they want to try and change it.
Yeah.
Which they can't. That easy, gosh. We'd all be kings.
Okay, next question. Often in dreams, I feel like I have accessed parallel universes. I witness myself living an alternate life path resulting from the different choices I have made. Are these just a construct of the mind, or am I really accessing alternate parallel universes? And if so, is there any significance to these experiences?
Yes, parallel universes do exist, firstly. Second thing is accessing them. You see, depending on your story in creation, where your mind has been, you will only access those places you've already been, according to your script. You cannot, let's say, imagine or go to a place that you've never been to before. So you can't go to a parallel universe if you have no connection there. You can only go to a place which you have a connection with, whether it's far back or presently. So any dream experience you have is a memory. A memory mixed with imagination. So that's why sometimes you'll have a dream that gives you some base of reality, like there are people you recognize in it, which are real in your life. But then there's a fantastic story that you're flying over this mountain. That's the imagination part. Yeah, because the mind likes to play imagination. When it's not actually doing something, it can't switch off. The mind has to keep on creating activity. So when you're not working or chanting and you start going idle in the mind, you'll start fantasizing. So the mind is a great thing for fantasy. Now, when you mix fantasy with reality, what do you get? You get a combination of both, which is really difficult to pick out the reality. So let's say you have an experience, you go to sleep and you experience in a parallel universe. There's two possibilities. One is that you're just simply recalling a memory of the past. Yeah, and that tends to have a little bit less sensational aspect to it. If you are having that same experience and there's a lot of fantasy going around and mythical things going on, then this is just fantasy. It's not actually a reality. But it's based upon the fact that you've had an experience at some point, somewhere in the past, with a parallel dimension. Not that you're necessarily experiencing it in your dream. So yes, the whole dream state and the whole imagination state is a minefield of complexity. But the truth is, you cannot imagine anything that doesn't exist, and you cannot think of anything that is not possible. However remarkable you might think it is, an alternative reality has it.
Thank you. Can trees and plants communicate with humans? I hear many people online saying that they communicate with them and also receive messages.
Yes, because one thing that's not developed in human beings yet is telepathy. Now, telepathy is an ability for minds to communicate directly without the physical body, without speaking. So these minds can communicate with each other, and that's how the master can communicate with the disciples, sometimes from afar, give them a message that they hear inside as a voice within them, or how they can be thinking of somebody and that person phones them. This telepathy thing allows you to communicate with other living beings, but in most human beings is not well developed. But in some human beings, yes, they can communicate with the trees and the plants and the nature around me. When I was younger, since my companions were only those, I specialized in this, able to communicate and receive back two-way communication between these species. So I have direct experience of that. And it is perfectly possible to communicate with trees, plants and animals when you're in that sort of frame of mind with that tunefulness, you've actually done that in the past. So now you bring that ability with you here in the present.
Thank you. How accurate is scalar wave technology for measuring frequency? Some spiritual people are using it to measure the frequency of world events, people, and material items.
It's scalar technology, but first let me explain what this is, because this is the frontier of science now. And science is my background, so I'm going to give a little bit of an explanation. So scalar waves are natural wave-like energy phenomena that have no apparent time or space associated with them. Like now, right? This now is a conjunction between the past and the present. The meeting point between the past and the present we call now, but it has no time and space. The future is to come in time, and the past has already been. Both are time based. Now has no time. Now means now. There's no time for that fraction of a moment. The moment you finish thinking about now, it's in the past.
History.
Yeah. So that particular moment is now. So scalar waves, wave-like energy, are like consciousness. Yeah. It's the expression of consciousness. The concept of scalar wave energy is like consciousness. Examples of which are, for example, particle entanglement theory, where two particles are associated with each other. They instantly react or recognize each other's position, even if they're a whole universe apart, instantaneously. That cannot happen in time and space. They have to exist outside a time and space dimension. Or the background temperature or radiation distribution throughout space, which is what puzzles scientists. There's a background radiation which is doing its own stuff, and it seems to be existing in a non kind of time space activity. Also, the pressure distribution, the pressure wave within a fluid, something like pressure, is universal across the entire fluid at the same time. It is instantaneous, it doesn't have time. Or the zero spin quantum field, such as the Higgs boson. So these exist without reference to time and space. Now, the actual discovery of scalar waves dates back to the 19th century by a very famous mathematician and scientist called James Maxwell. And he was a renowned scientist and mathematician. But many years later, it was Nikola Tesla who made it famous, because he believed and demonstrated for the first time, not theoretically, that scalar wave technology or scalar wave energy actually exists, and he could prove it with his gadgetry. But it was so far ahead of his time that a lot of people didn't understand what they were looking at when he was amazingly producing electricity that could travel across the air and hold a bulb in his hand and light the bulb. Yeah, by electricity traveling along on a magnetic spectrum, apparently instantaneously. But then later on, still later, Einstein too acknowledged the existence of this energy, which then led to the discovery and development of quantum physics. So quite an interesting story of this scalar energy. And there's a long history of its existence in science, but scalar energy is formed when two identical frequencies from opposite direction come and collide. At that particular point, that's when the scalar energy emanates from that. Get a bit technical, we're not going to do. This results in the cancelling out of any free movements of energy, and thus the creation of static, stationary energy field. And that's this kind of concept behind scalar technology. Now, additionally, it contains, let's say, circles of energy that radiate sort of outwards and in a balanced way to create a field around them. Now, because of this ability of scalar waves to do this, scientists eventually developed something called scalar wave technology, developed by what I would say is fringe science, because even Nikola Tesla, although he's a great scientist now, was considered fringe science then. And this is said to promote healing in our bodies with the help of subtle energy frequencies. This energy itself is artificially produced in a clinical setting, but it is claimed that this energy could enhance both the endocrine and immune systems of humans and animals if used correctly, and indeed it can. However, despite many reported benefits, some people still find the idea of scalar waves for healing hard to grasp. For those who don't already know, scalar wave energy is also known as scalar fields or Tesla fields because of the Tesla, due to Nikola Tesla's particular interest in this subject, which has been around for quite a while now. But no matter what one calls it today, the application of this energy is connected with both the quantum field theory and quantum mechanics. So yes, it does exist, and yes, it can assist in measuring subtle properties of matter, and it can enhance illness recovery and improve patient health, but only in those who also follow a healthy alkaline diet and positive well-being lifestyle. This is the future of medicine, actually. Yeah, so this scalar wave technology is the future of science and healing that is to come, using quantum. We've just touched the bubble of quantum mechanics and quantum field theory. We have the aliens use it, for example. They have good advanced knowledge, which is why they're able to defy things that we cannot understand, like anti-gravity effects and traveling immense speeds which defy even the speed of light. You know, how can they survive these things? Because they use quantum theory. So yeah, it's a big subject area.
Thank you. In recent years, I have frequently seen the numbers 111 and 818 everywhere. Is there any spiritual or numerological significance to these numbers?
Not from a global point of view, from an individual point of view it is. Because like I said, everything you think of, everything you see has meaning. It's how you interpret this meaning that matters. No experience that comes across you ever happens randomly. There's always a meaning. Even suffering, for example, which we take to be some sort of punishment, because the way the books of faith write it, that if you commit sin, you'll be punished. Actually, it's not that simple. Even Karl, despite being a negative power, has a reason for existence. And this idea of suffering or karmic retribution is an education. In fact, suffering is the greatest of teachers, in fact. Because only through suffering do we actually change. If I simply say to you words like, don't do this, you will say, okay, maybe this one knows what he's saying, but I'm not sure. But when you do it and you get a consequence, you say, now I know for sure. Nothing beats experience. Yeah? So when we see, say, numbers or events occurring around, it's because we have some connection with them. But from a spiritual point of view, don't bother analysing it too much. Just ignore it. It doesn't mean anything, because there's so many things in our life that are conditioned from our past and our associations. If we go down that, there's no end to it.
Thank you. The question of whether viruses are considered living organisms is a topic of ongoing debate amongst scientists and biologists. The classification of viruses as living or non-living varies depending on the criteria used for defining life. Are viruses indeed living organisms, and therefore do they have a soul? Okay, interesting question. Viruses themselves are, you could say, a semi-state. They're an altered state between living and non-living. This is because they don't actually contain DNA, they contain something called RNA. Now, RNA is a protein that can synthesize things. It's like a little factory. But it's not bound by, let's say, a mechanism that we understand, in the sense that there's a nucleus in a cell that controls and regulates the way that which is determined by DNA, in which the way that RNA is utilized. RNA can exist on its own, but it has only one function, and that is to perform whatever it's made from. So if this function was to make chairs, it should make chairs, and it would know how to do anything else, and it wouldn't realize it's making chairs. So virus doesn't realize or is aware of what it is doing. It is a molecular state, a supermolecular state, in which it has an effect on life forms. It can bridge the gap between life and non-life, but in a you could say, in a robot fashion. Therefore, it is neither living nor non-living. It is an intermediary state. So the soul thing?
Right, the soul. No, viruses don't have soul.
Okay. Right, this is the last question now. I was watching a documentary about the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Although a few likely theories have been proposed to explain the disappearance, no definitive conclusion has been reached. What is the actual true reason for its disappearance? Do you know?
Without going into details on this matter, it was a sad consequence of a pilot's decision to mull over his life. And really, it fell into the water south of the Indian Ocean because it simply ran out of fuel. It wasn't that the pilot didn't intend to, let's say, crash the aircraft. He was in a dilemma, the main pilot, and as a result of that, he changed the course into what do you say, in aircraft, in airline industry, you have beacons that determine the connection to a proximity of land. Once you go into no man's land, then nobody can track you except satellite. So what happened is he took it knowingly, so we know this is intentional. He took the aircraft, deviated from his original course, went west instead of east, and then went south, going down, heading almost, you could say, towards Antarctica, because of the vast span of ocean there, while he was mulling over his dilemmas of what to do about his life and the consequence. A lot of story behind his mental health and his problems in the airline industry with the authorities. And as a result of that, he simply ran out of fuel. And even he, as a pilot, he was a great pilot, couldn't save the plane. When it started plunging into the ocean, it plunged simply because it ran out of fuel. That's the sad story about that case.
Wow. Thank you. That is the last question. So.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions or no? Okay, you're all enlightened. That's very good to hear. So, yes, you have earned your lunch. I think this has been a long session. So, for any questions, any private meetings, you're most welcome to attend.
So dehi paje har ki sev pajo gobind pul mat ja मानस जानम का एही ला